Hello, and welcome back to another installment of MSP Success Spotlight. I'm your host and moderator, Ryan Ruff, and boy, today we've got a great episode dialed up for you. A true professional in the MSP space joining us today, Mr. Dan Izydorek, the CEO and founder of PC Miracles. Now, PC Miracles, as well as Dan, they're based out of the Pontiac and Detroit, Michigan area. Boy, are they a decorated organization. Got a handful of different accolades and distinctions that we're going to dive into today. But the big conversation that we're going to get into is really surrounding cybersecurity as a whole. As you know, on this show, we have these types of conversations with other MSPs, but Dan's got a unique approach and a lot of interesting tidbits to talk about within this cybersecurity space, specifically not only in the state of Michigan, but also on a greater level. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring Dan in to get today's conversation started. Dan, how are we doing this morning? Good to see you.
Good, Ryan. I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
No problem. Hey, we're happy to have you aboard the show, Dan. And, I just sharing a little bit about PC Miracles. You guys are based out of that Pontiac, Detroit, Michigan area. I think as a good way to kind of get our conversation started, Dan, for our audience, why don't you take us back to the beginning? Give us a little bit of that background on really who Dan Izydorek is, what led you into this IT solution space. And then of course, what led you really to PC Miracles as a whole?
Okay. Yeah. So, got my first computer when I was 9 years old. I was lucky enough to have my grandmother, my mom kind of convinced my grandmother to buy a computer back then. Still don't remember all the whole backstory on it, but got that computer in the house and started to learn and teach myself how to code. Obviously, back then there was no internet, so I got some books and so forth, and then back then, previous to the internet, there was items called BBSs, which are bulletin board systems, and you would connect to them and get information on how to learn to do things and so forth. And I found myself, I would play some games on the computer like any kid, but I really was programming and building menus, so it was easy for my family to play some of the games on the computer, because this was all previous to Windows existing. So I got that, and then kind of along the way, taught myself more and more and how to build websites. And in 1994, I was 16 and kind of had an inkling, don't know, because we're in Detroit and I didn't have any family that was at GM, but I just kind of had a thing in the back of my mind where I didn't want to be a number at GM. So I started to sell websites up and down the streets of downtown Rochester, where I grew up. And in 94, that was early for the web. And one thing I had going for me was people, kind of had the mindset back then that, hey, young people know about computers. So they were like, okay, you must know what you're talking about. So did some websites and did that for a couple of years. Found that the website business wasn't for me because I was working with business owners that I still needed to rely on them to give me content, photos, and verbiage. And and it would just take a long time. So I pivoted more when I was 18 to do more just break fix, which is just, fixing computers for family, friends, businesses, those same businesses that hired me for websites, and kind of evolved from there. And so what we did was, I was blessed where I changed actually the first name that I had when I was 16 was called AdNet. I changed the name when I was 18 to PC Miracles, and got referred a couple accounts when I was 19. At that point, those accounts were large enough to sustain me and it gave me the footing to build the company and start from there.
Wow. So truly a self-made entrepreneur. You're saying at age 18 is when you rebranded the company to PC Miracles, and the rest is history, really. I mean, so what an awesome story in that, you just had that get up and go, especially given your environment in the Michigan area where, yes, so many people, kind of feed into that, that corporate GM, that corporate life, really. You pushed away from the status quo. You wanted to go your own way, forge your own way ahead, and you certainly have done that. So walk me through then some of those early days, Dan. You're 18, you're 19, you start getting some of those kind of cornerstone clients in business, if you will. Walk me through what the growth of the company has been like, these last few decades, really.
Okay. Yeah. So you made a good statement. Cornerstone clients. So those two clients that were referred to me when I was 19 stayed with me, both of them for about 15 years,
Wow.
and they were really the foundation of what allowed me to grow the company. I was able to negotiate a fair price for one of them, with the ability for me to come and go as I needed. Some weeks I would work 40 hours there. Other weeks I would work 10 hours because I had other client work that I was building kind of the portfolio of the company and adding the client base. Um, and then in my early 20s, I had hired my first team member and just, kind of kept growing from there. In the early days, as any company, right, everything's on your shoulders. So you're just
Hmm.
figuring it all out. I did go to college, but when I was 19 and the company got, rather busy for me, I dropped out of college. My parents were not thrilled about that. They've gotten over that issue and they're fine about it now. So it's worked out quite well. But yeah, I mean, does that answer your question, Ryan?
Absolutely. I mean, hey, mom and dad, you had a business to run. So, no,
Yeah.
well done. Well done. Kudos to you. So I want to kind of get in then to, kind of your work with clients as a whole. So obviously you're, based in this Detroit, Michigan area. I would imagine, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but were those first, those cornerstone clients, those first few clients, were they localized? Were they Michigan based?
Oh, yes, they were definitely Michigan based. One was a logistics company, did a lot of
Mm-hmm.
trucking and for Kmart actually, which no longer is around.
Right.
And then another one was a manufacturing company that actually has been over 100 years in business. And the unique story on them is they polished the headlights in the Model T. It's kind of
Oh
cool.
wow, very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with these localized companies. How did that feel kind of on like a personal emotional level to you built this company, you start working with localized businesses and then of course as your companies continue to grow to the success story that it's been today, how does it feel to still kind of have your hand deep in the same community that you grew up in? How does that feel?
Oh, me being me, and I enjoy networking. I enjoy talking to other business owners, and it feels really great. I'm in Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a group of 13,000 members worldwide,
Mhm.
and I've been donating my time. This is my fifth year on the board, so donating my time to support that organization and help mentor other business owners in the Detroit area, and it gives me a lot of passion because there was a lot of people that you know that helped me along the way that didn't have to, and so I feel it's important to do that. And actually, the most people I think that give back realize this or find out as you do it. You get back everything that you give, right?
Sure.
Um, you you see different perspectives on things, and it's also really I really appreciate that I'm uh, helping so many companies from our client side. So for aside from mentoring, but from our client side, it's really proud for me to be able to talk to companies that we've been supporting for years to help the economy here because we're running the IT for these companies. And the thing that I've always tried to instill in our team is, you know, first of all, I don't pay your paycheck, right? Our clients do. So we got to support them fully. And secondly, those clients, some of them have hundreds of employees and team members, um, and that's hundreds of families that our IT affects and supports. So we got to
Mhm.
be able to make sure that we're doing the right job and doing everything to support those clients.
Dan, I love that. Client support so important in this space because hey, just like you said, they're the backbone of your business as well as obviously their own business. So great point
Yep.
there. I'd love to dive into the business itself now. Could we? I know you guys have a huge focus over at PC Miracles when it comes to cybersecurity. So I'd love to get into just your overall thought, maybe that high level overview, if you could give it to us. Is why is cybersecurity so important in this day and age?
Well, especially with COVID hitting,
Mhm.
we've seen a huge increase on attacks on companies. There's lots of data out there that will show you exactly how much it increased. But with the pivot of everyone having to work from home, that has changed the security landscape dramatically. So some companies have stayed with the configuration they had and didn't pivot, and they're more of a vulnerable target. And so that's something you got to consider. And the issue is, if you don't have the right plan in place, the right process in place to address the security inside your company and the backups in your company, backups are key, because if you do get attacked, then you're going to have to rely on those. Not every backup is equal, right?
Hmm.
So if the backups are not set up right, when there is an encryption or a ransomware or something of that nature, it's going to attack those backups too if they're not structured properly. And the thing is, and we found through many conversations with business owners, is it, this industry is changing so ever fast. Like they don't know how to manage the IT staff that they have on staff to be able to guide them and rely on them to make sure that they're safe and secure. And that's why companies rely on us. We have clients that we manage all the IT full and full, or we have clients that they have on staff IT and we partner with that on staff IT, and we are the strategy behind it and the escalated support and so forth.
You mentioned a lot of great stuff there, Dan. I kind of want to unpack some of it. So you mentioned that yes, some of the clients you guys manage their IT full and full, or it's mainly little one-offs here and there. But a lot of this conversation, and it seems to be a recurring theme on this show, is how important the idea of just pure education is on this idea of cybersecurity, because it's the employees of a given company that in some instances can be the greatest risk to that company's
Correct.
infrastructure, their mainframe, all the good stuff. So walk me through then what that level of education and that service of education looks like from your standpoint, when maybe, let's say, you're going through a new relationship with a client. Like how do you go about that education conversation?
Okay, yeah, no problem. So the main rule of it all is, cybersecurity is not a one and done item, right? So
Hmm.
you have to consistently work on it. So we've developed a process, and we do it through onboarding with a new client, and we do it ongoing through our relationship with our client. That we developed a team called the Network Compliance Team. So I identified 5 years ago that we had a lot of repetitive noise. And so what I had to do was identify how we can reduce that. And what I mean by repetitive noise is a user at a client would put in a ticket about their printer not working. They would put in the same ticket a week later, and I called it rework. So we would have this rework that was happening. And I was aware of a group that I was actually a member of previously, and then rejoined the group. They had improved their method and structure. It was a framework more of what we could adopt to use as a baseline to improve our business. And really what it was is we added, in essence, and it's a great, I use this comparison in the Detroit area all the time because we're in a manufacturing town, is we added a quality department. So
Hmm.
manufacturers have quality departments, software companies have quality departments because they're doing debugging, testing, so forth. But managed service providers typically don't have a quality department, somebody that's actually testing and checking things that is done by the other departments. So we instilled this process where we're checking these best practice standards across all our clients. And part of that list, a good portion of it, probably about 25 to 30%, is security related.
Hmm.
So when you put something in place for security, say a piece of software or whatnot, you can't just set it and forget it. You might get a request from one of your software vendors that something needs to be changed, so that we change the security software. It would be an example. And if that happens, then no one goes back to check it again. In our process, our network compliance engineer is going to check that every month on every client. So we have a team of network compliance engineers that take that information, and what they do is they say what's in alignment and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
And then the data that's not in alignment, they take that and it goes into our software system, and that's shared with our CIO team. So we have two members on our CIO team, which go through, distill the information down to a roadmap that we can explain in business language in English to our clients and not geek speak, and make sure, I mean, it's true, right? And make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you explain to the clients, the next 2 years of strategy for them. What do they have as a security risk? Where are there areas where maybe we can put some automations in so their team can be more productive? Where can we reduce some of the issues with their IT today? Lots of people, there's a point where some people will get frustrated and leave their job because their IT doesn't run stable and it's consistently making it so they have to work later, things of that nature. So
Right.
you got to take that all into consideration, and we roadmap that all out and educate the client on all those vulnerabilities and areas of improvement.
Wow, Dan, I love the idea of that roadmap. And it really, what I gather from that as well is the fact that a lot of the actions that you guys take in your company is all stemmed from this idea of education. It's
Mhm.
identifying that problem, for the company's business, internalizing it within your company, hashing out what is in compliance with, that best practices that you mentioned. And then, on the flip side, like you said, breaking it down into understandable moments. That way you can go back to the client with a roadmap on how to address these, maybe chinks in the armor, or kinks in the armor, if you will. So,
Yeah.
so I love that process, Dan. And, in going through that, have you found that just typically clients enjoy that level of safety, security that they bring, that process brings to them? How ultimately comfortable are they in working with you guys once they get a full picture like you just provided with us of how you guys go about your business?
Yeah, where we found great success on that is, previously in our structure, over 5 years ago, we would just meet with the client. We would say, hey, these are our metrics. This is how fast we're getting tickets done. What changes are happening in your business? Oh, and by the way, your server is coming up on warranty and we need to renew it. Is there anything else we can help you with? This structure and process that we've developed, and keep in mind it's evolving actually, monthly. And what I mean by
Mm-hmm.
that is when we started it 5 years ago, around 5 years ago, we had around 70 items that we checked for best practice. Now we're over 400.
Wow.
And the reason was that much is because when something comes up as a trending issue that's a repetitive issue at a client site, if it's we call it noise, if it's noisy enough, then it gets added to the process for the network compliance engineers to double check. And
Mm-hmm.
by doing that, what we've been able to do is really have a different discussion with our clients, right? So those meetings now are full of education. The first time we do them on a new account, they're like, I had no idea that we had those vulnerabilities. I thought we got rid of that years ago. Um, you know, and the great thing is when I'm in the sales process and we're discussing things with a prospect, it's really it's so it's a great feeling when I can just say, hey, here's a ton of clients, you can call them and ask them about our process, and we got a ton of raving fans. And as a business owner, that's really like, changed my appreciation for my business, if that makes sense, and my team members. My team is amazing, and I couldn't be here without them because of this process.
Sure, absolutely, and because of that robust process, Dan, you guys have seen quite a lot of success. Not only are you and the company going to be featured in MSP Success magazine in this upcoming fall 2021 edition, but additionally, I'd love for you to share some of these awards and distinctions that you guys have accumulated over the years. Because from what I've gathered and getting ready for our conversation today, is you guys have been regarded as a top MSP across the state of Michigan. Walk me through just how your work really speaks for itself.
Thank you. Yeah, so in 2019, we made the list for the first time for the MSP 501, which is from Channel Futures, sorry. We were in the round 430 ranking. And then In 2020 and 2021, we moved up the ranking high enough where we are the number one MSP in Michigan,
Wow.
ranked by Channel Futures. So 2 years in a row, which is great. And then from CRN Magazine, we were just deemed a pioneer, a 250 pioneer. So one of the top 250 MSPs that are, pioneering with new process, new change, improvements for our clients, and so forth. So yeah, it was a lot of hard work to get those, but it just reinstills that, we're doing the right thing.
The right thing indeed. I mean, to achieve some of those accolades that, hey, they don't grow on trees. You got to work hard for them. And clearly you guys have done that. So a tip of the cap to you guys and the rest of the team over at PC Miracles. But Dan, one kind of final conversation point I wanted to bring up before we kind of bring our conversation to a head here is this idea of the dark net, the dark web. For
Mhm.
those clients that maybe aren't necessarily as educated on really what the dark web is and how they're, maybe it's even a manufacturing company that's maybe they're on the smaller side of things. They deal in some smaller elements that they create. Even their data, their infrastructure can find its way into the dark web. Walk me through, in your own high level overview of really just what the dark web is and how honestly any business can really fall victim to having their infrastructure, their data get placed out on it.
Okay. So the main threat today to business related to the information that's on the dark web is login information. And so when I say that at first, uh, a lot of business owners kind of get concerned and say, what, my logins to my email and things are out on the dark web? Not necessarily. In that, if it gets to that point, that's rare. What it is more commonly is you got LinkedIn, you got Adobe, you got all these companies that have been breached, and all those logins are up for sale on the dark web. Why that's important to a company is many team members out there use their corporate email when they're signing up for those sites, even if they're not work related. And so if they're using the same password on those sites as what they use in their company for the VPN or for accessing their email or logging into their computer, what the hackers are doing out there is they're taking that information. They can buy it for, each login for like a penny or two each. They buy the whole list, they put it into an automated system, and that system, goes through and tries those email addresses and passwords on the email server, on if they have access to a remote desktop server, if they have a VPN, if they know how to get to the VPN. So there's all these different areas where they test that. So that information you need to be aware of. And so what we do is we provide that as an included service for our clients, and we send the notification to them. And there's a whole process where they just need to identify, look at it. If those team members are still on the team, ask that team member to change their password wherever it is that's related, because we actually have the password information that's shared. And then just make sure that that's in check, right? With that said, those are logins out there. One of the first things that companies can do to hedge against the information that's on the dark web is put multi-factor authentication in place. Some people call it MFA or 2FA. You can put that in place. Make sure you put it on your email, your remote access, everywhere you can. And if there is a breached login that's out there for sale and you have MFA configured, and here's where I'm going to say configured properly, because we have inherited accounts where it's turned on, but it's not configured properly to enforce it to be used across all the users. So
Uh,
there's things that need to be considered, and just you, even if your IT person or company that you're currently using says, yeah, you have MFA turned on, and Mr. Owner, yeah, didn't you get the alert and you got the two-factor authentication? They said, yeah, we are a big proponent of showing the data to our client where there's a report of all the users, and showing that it's approved and turned on and being used by all the team members. So that's just a little tidbit there. Hopefully that helps, Ryan.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, because when it comes to the dark web, as you mentioned, people are buying hundreds, thousands of logins, this vital information that could be detrimental to your company
Yep.
for pennies, literally pennies on the dollar, only to then turn around and take your company belly up. So obviously some tips and strategies here from Dan that you don't want to miss out on. You want to make sure that you're incorporating. And Dan, one thing I wanted to ask you is that you guys offer dark web scans as part of your services in the cybersecurity space for your clients. Walk me through, let's say not only for somebody that's listening that's been hearing our conversation about either A, the dark web, or B, just PC Miracles, your company as a whole. Walk me through how somebody could get in touch with you guys to request a free dark web scan, or either just, open up the conversation for how maybe you guys might be a good fit for their company as a whole.
Okay. Yeah. So if you just go to our website, which is pcmiracles.com, and you'll see a form to request information, like you just touched on, Ryan. For anyone that's not a client, we'll do a free dark web scan for them. So there's no issue getting that information over to you. There's no commitment or anything. Just see if there's anything on there that's of concern to you. And then it just opens up the dialogue to discuss further. So does that answer that, Ryan?
Absolutely, absolutely. For anybody that was, has been watching or listening to this show today, I want to obviously open up the opportunity on, if in case they wanted to get in touch with you or PC Miracles,
Yeah.
if there was a right fit there, wanted to obviously open the door there for.
Appreciate
Dan,
that.
yeah, no problem. Look, hey, for anybody that is listening, anybody that's tuned into our conversation today, Dan, is there any final message that you would want to leave our audience with in regards to just this world of cybersecurity that you live in every day that so many people overlook? Is there any final thoughts you might want to leave our audience with today before we wrap up?
Yeah, no problem. So, I mean, just keep in mind and remember, um, hackers back in the day, they weren't as structured and organized as what they are today, right? They used to be sometimes a kid in a basement. They just try to get in and mess around. It's a full corporation now, right? Um, the goal is to get access to information that's unique, but really the goal today is to get in and encrypt your data with a key that you cannot generate yourself, and then encrypt your data, and then they're hoping that you don't have good backups. And so I would challenge every business owner out there, make sure to question your IT team, your IT provider, to show the proof data that your backups can sustain an attack. And if you look at more and more of the stats, it's not if, it's more when a company's going to get hit, unless there's enough of a good approach there. And where we've had great success, there's no one security product that does it all. So we're a very layered security process that we have here. I think today we layer on to each client 5 security products, so that when the first one doesn't catch it and it gets through to the second one hopefully catches it, and vice versa. And we've been really blessed where we've taken that approach, where we can actually say that across our client base, we haven't had a ransomware encryption attack that got through our security. We have seen them try to attempt, but that got through our security and encrypted a client in the last around 4.5 years, which has made our world a lot better and makes me sleep a lot better, and really helps our clients sleep a lot better.
Of course, and I would imagine it's also a big bullet point as to why you guys are rated, number 1 in the state of Michigan. So again, tip of the cap to you and your team over at PC Miracles. Dan, really appreciate you taking your time today to kind of peel back the curtain, share some of those industry insights, and then of course, what really differentiates you guys from the rest of the pack. So Dan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ryan. Have a good one.
And look, hey, we want to take a moment to thank you, our audience, for jumping aboard for another episode of the show. Again, if you like what you saw, you liked what you heard regarding Dan, or even just the show as a whole, yes, please feel free to like the show, comment on any of our postings, subscribe on any of the channels that you're checking us out on. It's free to do, it easily helps the show out. And of course, we can continue bringing great content and great conversations right to you. So for Mr. Dan Izydorek, I'm your host, Ryan Ruff, saying so long, and we thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of MSP Success Spotlight.